Access to medical care is becoming more and more of an issue here in Guam, and it doesn't even matter if you have the ability to pay. It's getting harder to see a doctor, to get a doctor, to get an appointment, or to get the specialty care that you need. So I want to show you a growing solution to a growing problem. They're going to go out of their way to help find you a solution. And they've been growing their clinical services. Aside from this place looking and feeling homely, like this is their waiting area. Like, I don't think that people really understand that they do full clinical services here. Like, this is one of their clinical rooms. Look how nice it is. You get your vision exam here. So do you need to see an OBGYN, get family medicine done, internal medicine done? This is all stuff that's done here at the Total Guam Foundation. And just to tell you again, this place is not for profit. This is the psychologist's office. Yes, they have a psychology department. They also do psychiatry. It's an entire mental health department that they have here on top of all the other clinical services that they provide. If you need medical care, if you're having problems getting a doctor, getting an appointment, call the Todu Guam Foundation at 649-TODU or 649-8638. You can visit them on the first floor of the Sunny Plaza building that's next to Sunny Outlet and behind the old Bank of Hawaii building. Good morning, my dear friends. It is Monday, 8:01 a.m., the 4th of May, 2026. My name is Troy Torres, and I thank you for joining me on this live stream, or if you're watching the replay, on the replay. Good morning and welcome to the second day of this week for me. Whatever this is for you, I hope it is a favorable, enjoyable, blessed, and safe day for you. We'll try to get more information about a news story out of Guam yesterday where police officers, at least police spokesman Norman Analista, said that a high-speed police chase ensued from East Sengsong Road and then ended near the Dedado cockpit area. It ended with according to the police, the car they were chasing did actually hit a police officer as it tried to maneuver and escape. And so officers opened fire, and the two male occupants in the vehicle were struck. And so those two and the police officer who was struck by the car were taken to GRMC. We don't have any updates yet about how that all has panned out, who those are, what happened. We'll try to get more information about that today. I do want to let you know on this live show and say I'm sorry to you. I did issue the retraction in the written stories, but there was a news release that Guam Power Authority put out yesterday, and it was about how GPA crews started to the ones who were going to be working on the restoration effort. So there was an assessment crew that went last week. They preceded everybody, right? So there's now going to be 55 professionals from GPA who go over to the CNMI to help with the power restoration work there. And yesterday's news release was about how the first crew was there, and then they're going to be sending 8 bucket trucks and other stuff. And nothing in the GPA news release was inaccurate. I created a headline that was inaccurate, and I put that it was that the work was expected to be done within 3 weeks when the news release really said 3 months. It was my error. I issued the correction on the website and on our Facebook. I'm trying to take down the Instagram because you cannot switch out the graphics on Instagram, so I just have to take it down. It wouldn't let me do that this morning. And so anyway, I wanted to, because we're like very committed to not putting retractions or corrections like at the bottom of something or at a footnote. We're very committed to putting that at the very top of our admissions, our disclaimers, so that people see these things right off the bat. Anyway, what I want to talk about today, so there is some grumbling about 2 weather systems. National Weather Service meteorologist in charge, Brandon Aydlett. I talked to him this morning about Invest 92W and Invest 93W. We'll talk to him a little bit more this morning around sometime close to 8:30 on live phone call. But the crux of my discussion with him this morning was this is not something that the
there's little model guidance to show that this is something that's going to head toward the Mariana Islands. It's going to continue to move westward, according to my conversation with him this morning. But I want you to hear his voice and you to hear what he has to say about this, so that it might allay some of the worries that you might have if you're looking at that graphic that shows Invest 92W followed by Invest 93W right behind it, and southwest of Guam. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about an opinion piece. Yeah, I really love reading opinion pieces by Dave Lotz. There's also one that I need to read by Samuel Kim that's about the audit. I haven't read it yet, but I will. But Dave Lotz, he published another great one in the Pacific Daily News, and it's about vision in government and leadership. And I want to tell you a story about the vision that we were part of when I was in the Calvo administration, and how I wish that that type of visionary leadership was something that would have continued, would have persisted, no matter who it was, right? That would become governor, and no matter who it is that will become governor in this year's election. But what Dave Lotz writes is a reminder to us that leadership and who we elect shouldn't always just be about the present issues and the present problems, because they've always been the present problems and they've always been the present issues. And a lot of that has to do with, it has never been about vision for so many politicians. And it's just such a great op-ed that he wrote, and I want to read it to you. But on the other side of this commercial break that we're going to take now, the intro break, we are going to get Senator Celina Roberto Babauta from Saipan on the line to talk about how her office is helping people in the CNMI who are applying for FEMA aid, what sort of help that she's providing. And I also want to talk to her a little bit about a story that I saw in the Guam Daily Post and in the Marianas Variety about a digital currency something that is now being propped up as some sort of charitable something in response to Super Typhoon Sinlaku disaster recovery, and just some words of caution. We'll get to all those things on the other side of this commercial break. Please stick with us. Short break.
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Welcome back to the show. It is 8:08 a.m. on Monday, May 4, 2026. My name is Troy Torres. Thank you for watching live. Thank you for watching the replay. Thank you for your readership and viewership of Kandit. We appreciate you very much. If anybody remembers, if anybody who's here in Guam remembers applying for FEMA aid back in the post-Malwar period, you likely remember that it was frustrating either for yourself or for those around you who were applying for aid. And it wasn't just in the application process. There was also this something called a denial, and it confused everybody. Everyone thought that this is it. FEMA's not giving me anything, and it caused a lot of consternation. And it was all, it was coupled with the anxiety and the frustration of, one, not being aware of what was going on because the communication systems were down, two, not being able to rely on data service in order to send in your application, or phone service to be able to call in your application, phone service or data service to be able to follow up and see where your application was. There was just a lot that was going on in the post-Malwar period that is similar to what's happening in the post-Sinlaku period, for especially for Saipan and Tinian. It's according to the sit reps coming out of the Joint Information Center in Saipan. Cellular and data services are now, and I think it's 3 weeks later, right? From both carriers, both of the major carriers, past the 50% mark. In some cases, they're at 100% in some areas. But I mean, so there are still some telecommunications issues, but for the past 3 weeks, it's been this steady repair of what was nearly a blackout following Typhoon Sinlaku. So very much like what happened after the Malwar period. And so there was this denial thing that we all had to go through after Malwar, and then there was the appeals process, and then when you finally got your check, so many people were dissatisfied with what FEMA approved at the end of the day because there were just so many damages. So you can imagine the same sort of thing happening with Sinlaku. Now, there's a bit of a difference between the situation in Guam and the situation in Saipan and Tinian, aside from the fact that the damages in Saipan and Tinian are tremendously more than they were in Guam because Sinlaku was much stronger than Malwar was. And it is in the documents that you would provide to prove that your claim is eligible and that you are qualified for FEMA aid. For example, ownership records, lease records, because of how property works in the CNMI versus how property works in Guam. So we're going, Saipan Senator Celina Roberto Babauta, she put out a couple of days ago a message on her Facebook saying, if you need help through this FEMA process, as in verifying information about that you need to send over to FEMA, her office stands ready to work with you so that they might be able to issue affidavits, because in the last storm, when these problems were happening in the post-YouTube period, FEMA was accepting affidavits from public officials to deal with these types of issues. And so we're going to talk to Senator Babauta about this. And then I also want to bring up this whole digital currency news and, riff about that for a second.
Hello.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Troy.
Thank you so much for taking our call. You're live with us on Kandit. Say hello to everybody.
Good morning, Kandit.
I wanted to ask about your the help that your office is providing to people applying for FEMA. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. So I've taken it upon myself to assist people navigate the website, because right now there is no designated office for FEMA to be able to receive in-person applications or walk-ins. So right now everybody has to apply online, either through the app or through a website. And so I help people just navigate that. Some of the questions are complicated. And then whatever errors, if any, will be settled with FEMA once they establish their designated office. And this is really just to help that gap where businesses are not tech savvy or do not have access to a computer. And it can often mean the difference between getting denied and getting, approval. The other side of that is helping people with affidavits. As you know, many here in the CNMI have informal designations of land ownership, and it's very common here. FEMA is aware of this. And so they have a special process. The federal agency has a special process wherein any public official or designated public officials can either write a letter on their letterhead, attesting that you know this person, or through your public office, you are aware that these, families live in this household, but they do not own the land.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we provide an affidavit for that, and there's specific information that is required by FEMA.
When did you start helping people?
Actually, since last week, I helped a corporation apply for their SBA loan at their office. I went to their office. I assisted 2 families with the affidavits to make the determination that they do not land and the dad. I helped another family with that affidavit from my office, and they were very happy with it because the land didn't belong to them, but the occupants of the house that was severely damaged.
Do you get the sense that most people already have made their applications, or uh, not too
I
many
believe
yet?
so. I'm hearing that a lot of people were able to apply through either a laptop or through the FEMA app for the smartphone.
Okay.
But there's still a lot of more people out there who do not have access to a laptop. So
Mm.
I will be again assisting families today.
Okay.
To help them apply online.
Do you anticipate your workload in terms of this assistance is going to be increasing over the next several days and weeks?
I'm glad you asked that. It has actually increased from about 2 a day to now about 5 a day. So yes, I do anticipate it increasing the workload.
Do you know of any other senatorial or congressional offices offering this support in case you might get overloaded, right, on a daily basis? Maybe there's another office that might be helping out.
I'm not aware of the other members except for one. I know Representative Diego Vincent Camacho has been helping with that as well. He has, in fact, helped at least 4 families through this statement from a public official.
Okay.
So I'm glad that they're stepping up. Other members, I hope, will do the same. And I don't know for a fact that they're not, but I do hope they, publicize it that they are helping as well, because there's a lot of people out there who really, really need this.
Senator, there also
assistance.
are a lot of people out there in all of our communities, right, who would not hesitate to scam the government. How do you, how like what sort of verification or due process do you go through to ensure that you're not dealing with someone who's just trying to scam either a family member out of something or the federal government out of money?
So if I have personal knowledge of the family that I'm helping, meaning I'm close to them, I know them very well, I know they've occupied the home for many, many years, I do not require any documents. However, for people I do not know, I would ask a few documents just to show, signs that they are, in fact, being truthful. I do have to protect myself as well, because this is an affidavit, basically a sworn statement from me coming that you don't own the land, but you were the occupant of the home. So things like perhaps just show me a utility bill if I don't know the person, or court document saying you are the administrator or you're the administrator of property assets that is still in court, and the person who is the administrator.
Okay.
So I do ask questions, and once I'm satisfied, I will issue the affidavit.
Okay, right on. So you and Representative Diego Camacho are helping with this. How can people get a hold of you if they need help?
They can email me, Babauta C, it's my last name and my first name initial, .NMI Senate@gmail. I do want to add also that Recreation Legal Services Corporation is also assisting them, the public with this process, as well as private attorney Miss Janet King.
We're going to work on a story about an app that our friend PK put out as well. I haven't reviewed it yet, but there's something regarding how to access aid that he put together, and I thought it was pretty brilliant. So I'll get to that as well. But yes, we did interview Heidi Simpson with Micronesian Legal Services Corporation and Amelia Hoppy with Emergency Legal Responders. It's a national organization, and all the great work that they are offering the people of the CNMI to get through this process. So it's wonderful stuff. I want to switch gears, Senator.
And also, sorry that I do not charge for this. It's free for everybody. It's just me and my office and my staff trying to help other people get the assistance they need and to access that assistance.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that you are a public official engaged in a community effort, and you are not charging for it, because it kind of segs into the next conversation I wanted to have with you. And granted, I want to tell you that I don't know much about this because it deals with finance and digital currency, but something smells rotten in Denmark, Senator. There is a story in the Guam Daily Post and the Marianas Variety about a cryptocurrency company out of the States that has partnered with a so-called tech company in Saipan that
Mm-hmm.
is connected with former Secretary of Finance David Aydlett Jr., who has
Mm-hmm.
had a long run of controversy in his handling of money, both prior to being the Secretary of Finance and as the Secretary of Finance, who is
Mm-hmm.
now, and ever since Governor Palacios has died and Lieutenant Governor Dennis Mendiola became the Lieutenant Governor, back in the government of the CNMI, and in a picture together with the Lieutenant Governor advocating in this story for this Mari cryptocurrency that's resulting from this um, DeFi, Nebula DeFi in the States partnership with Mariana something tied to David Aydlett Jr., who also happens to be the executive director or some type of member of a nonprofit organization that has been created connected to this cryptocurrency, through which now there is a promotion of, if you invest in this, a portion of the proceeds is going to go to Sinlaku relief. And Senator, it doesn't something doesn't sound right here. Are you what are you tracking with this?
Other than what was published in today's Variety, I don't really know much about it. But personally speaking, I would not uh, trust cryptocurrency. It's just too clouded with no barely any regulations. In fact, the Mariana stablecoin is still under consideration of the court. There was, I believe, it was a certified question submitted by the Attorney General's office, or I'm sorry, it was he filed a restraining order because of constitutional issues. And I wouldn't, this is not the first time that David Aydlett Jr. has created a nonprofit in support of typhoon relief. This is, I think, his third attempt at this. There was one back in 2015 created right after Super Typhoon Soldolor. And in fact, he used his nonprofit at the time, which wasn't actually a nonprofit because they had lost their status as a nonprofit and did not reveal that information when he was collecting approximately a little over $10,000, if I'm not mistaken, on that relief efforts. And we don't know. He wasn't transparent enough. As a nonprofit, you're supposed to be transparent as to how you distribute the funds if you're saying it's for typhoon relief. When a person in California called him out on it and said that nonprofit has lost its status, they immediately shut down the GoFundMe fundraising effort. Immediately.
And there's also this connection now. I mean, I would assume that you and your legislative colleagues would be concerned, with, considering your oversight roles, right? Or your oversight duties, concerned about some type of seeming connection between the government and this private business and so-called nonprofit or whatever this is, right? This foundation that David Aydlett Jr. is a part of all of this, and at the same time, isn't he a special assistant in the office of the governor? And he's posing with the lieutenant governor of the CNMI. I don't know what sort of role that he plays in all of this, but I mean, it just doesn't sound right at all.
Well, it's important for him to be transparent and say that this is not a government organized relief fundraising or efforts. This is strictly on his own with a newly created foundation still in its infancy. Their foundation is. I don't know what the connection is to the lieutenant governor. As for the picture, I don't know if Mariana's Variety, that was the only picture they had in their archives, or I don't know what transpired in the interview with Mr. Aydlett, that they would use the lieutenant governor's picture with him. So I can't speak to that.
But we've seen this type of thing unfold before, and it absolutely involving the government, and it was not very long ago, and it was with the Boost stuff, where either businesses or so-called nonprofit organizations were chartered on the same day that funds would become available to them, the same day that they would be paid funds, or the same day that they would apply for the funds, or maybe 2 weeks prior, or and I believe in one case a month after. And so,
Yeah.
doesn't this sort of raise hairs on your arms? And is there something that the legislature might do to rein in some oversight here?
It does. It is concerning for me that the same actors are now trying to, I would say, take advantage of the situation on the ground here. People are getting, frustrated with the government relief efforts to clean up and provide some type of assistance. And as to the Boost hearings, I was disappointed in the special prosecutor, Mr. Karsh, for providing global settlement
Yeah.
and claiming that there wasn't enough evidence. I don't think he spent much time looking at it from a public fiduciary perspective.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There
Jim
were
Bob
certainly
King.
mountains of evidence.
Yeah, Jim Bob Kingman, he writes in the comments, how long
Oh.
until we wait until something is proven to be a nonprofit before we call it that? Just saying foundation doesn't make it so. When will the benefit of the doubt be lost with this set? How many grifts will it take? I actually, to his point, I actually have a problem with the reporting on this and how
Mhm.
things were stated as facts in the news story without any sort of validation or sourcing and explanations of what certain things were, sort of throwing it out there, almost a promotion of something that hasn't been verified to be, one, a nonprofit, and secondly, what about the questions about the connections between people that just seem completely suspect?
Certainly, it's concerning, and the fact that they, make assertions that they have partnered with a company out of Atlanta, Georgia, doesn't make it, legitimate per se. Until they are transparent, we've seen and we have experienced. More importantly, we have experienced, Troy, all the questionable actions that Mr. David Aydlett has committed when he was Secretary of Finance.
Yeah.
And personally, I just don't, wouldn't be as trusting if you would.
Yeah. Yeah, I would. I don't know if we're going to follow this story. I mean, we certainly would have never done the initial story, but maybe we need to follow it because it has been put out there. Anyway, well, I'll figure something out. Is there anything you wanted to add, Senator, about the work that you're doing, and that even Congressman Diego Camacho is doing to help people through the FEMA aid process,
Sure,
or even the SBA process?
I want to thank our colleagues in the legislature. They've been trying their best with what they have in an impossible situation. We have been trying to reach the most vulnerable population of our communities, and we all work in tandem. There are people from the north, the central, southern, eastern sections of the island that are trying their best to reach people. We are grateful for the referrals. In fact, I have been referring displaced families to Housing Corporation, the government agency, Northern Marianas Housing Corporation, for placement into vacant units out there because their roofs, flew off or anything like that. So I'm grateful for those. We get referrals, and then I immediately give it, to apartment agencies or apartment units that may or may not have vacancies. Just yesterday, I was able to place 2 families into a vacant apartment unit, and they are now in the process of signing their lease or whatever. I asked them to keep all receipts just in case FEMA has a reimbursement program like they did, or a paid housing program like they did in U2. As for now, we do not know what federal aid in terms of financial assistance that FEMA will provide because they haven't, announced anything. I do know that they are getting ready to establish their office so they can be able to accept in-person application.
I'll ask today. I know what the programs are based on the Stafford Act, so I will ask. I'll send that list over to Veronica Verdi, who is the on-the-ground senior PAO for FEMA activities here for the Sinaloa period. And I'll ask her. I'll send her the list, and I'll ask her what applies to Saipan, Tinian, Rhoda, and the Northern Islands.
Sure.
Yeah, and also on the, I'll send. I don't know who the SBA person is, but I'll send that same list to the SBA person and ask what applies.
I also want to acknowledge the hardworking people in our government. They are trying their best, from CUC to CHC, all the government agencies involved in trying to get us back to normal. The mayor's office has been amazing, to say the least. They have been pushing out programs as fast as they possibly can. And everybody deserves, to be given praise for that. Those outside in the executive branch who are trying to get us back to normal, I really do appreciate their hard work. Many of them have not taken a day off, Troy. So I always make it a point when I'm driving and I see them conducting traffic, on the road. I make sure to slow down, roll my window, and say thank you so much.
Senator, I love putting up stuff like that, like the this is this person doing this work, and let's say thank you to this person. If you wouldn't mind, if you could be our photographer on the ground, could you send us some stuff?
Sure.
And we'll gladly post that onto Kandit. Gladly.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a few.
Thank you.
Of the mayor's staff out in action.
And CUC and whoever.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone who is helping out with the
thank
recovery.
You.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much, Troy, for doing that for our people. We really appreciate it.
I hope you get power soon. Do you have water yet?
It's been slow. We have drips of water.
Man.
There's no fixed schedule, so I have to wait at home, turn on all the faucets so I don't miss the, time they turn it on, but it's just really been coming out so slow.
Okay, well, I hope the situation improves very quickly.
I understand. We've been here before. This is the time where we need the most patience and cooperation of everybody.
Thank you so much for your time, Senator.
Thank you.
God bless you. That was Senator Celina Roberto Babauta from the Senate. She represents Saipan. On the other, and she was just talking to us about the help that her office and apparently the office of Representative Diego Vincent Camacho is providing to people who are applying for FEMA and SBA. We'll try to, I will send out a note to the FEMA senior PAO about clarifying what programs are available for the people of the CNMI. And I will also send out the same note to whoever the SBA person is. I haven't made any contact there ever since. I don't think ever, actually. But I'll find that and I'll send that note. On the other side of the commercial break, we're going to get Brandon Aydlett, meteorologist in charge with the National Weather Service Guam office, to talk to us about Invest 92W and Invest 93W, which is southwest of the Mariana Islands. Stick with us, and we'll get the latest on the weather on the other side of this break. Welcome back to the show. I hope you're learning as much as I'm learning as we go along with our guests. It is 8:36 a.m. on Monday, May 4, 2026, and we have more to learn from meteorologist in charge over the National Weather Service Guam office, Brandon Aydlett. Brandon, good morning.
Good morning, Troy. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I'm wondering to worry or to not worry about Invest 93W, 92W, and 93W. And pardon me, where are my manners? How are you doing?
Doing all right. Had a good weekend, but now ready to hit the new work week and hit the road.
Well, is it a work week of worry or like what's going on?
Well, it's not so concerning for us in the Marianas. Now, so a couple of things first. Typically, when we see a disturbance start to get a number, it seems to be that next step in the process, the evolution of a tropical system. And so with that said, it's not a new thing that we're waking up to. We have been watching a couple of disturbances the past week and a half across Micronesia, but more so the potential that has largely existed in the long-range computer models, showing some type of system or two potentially evolving and developing in the Micronesia region, either central Micronesia or so. And so that's still the case. Nothing has changed in that regard. What has transpired overnight is just some discussions with the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Things are looking a little bit better developed with one of the circulations at least. The other one is still very weak, poorly organized. But given the model data that we're getting a little bit closer, Joint Typhoon Warning Center went ahead and took that next step to put a number on these systems. So we have Invest 92W, which is just east of Yap Island, and then Invest 93W, which is near Chuuk.
Okay.
And so those are the two big things. We've been watching these systems, the potential that has existed in the model data, and now we've just taken that next step forward with an Invest number.
Okay, before we get to how this might affect the Mariana Islands, can we talk about how Invest 93W currently and for the next few days might affect Chuuk, and especially considering the tough recovery over there?
Yes, and for them, they are going to be in for a very wet couple of days. Right now, I'm looking at satellite imagery, and there are some heavy showers that are developing all across Chuuk State. So this is just going to really slow down any progress that they have been able to make thus far. Along with those showers, strong gusty winds are going to be developing. And perhaps even more for Chuuk Lagoon, the consideration for westerly or southwesterly swell that does kind of enter into that lagoon from the 9 o'clock position on the western side of the Chuuk Lagoon. So they're going to be in for a couple of wet, gusty days the next several days as this 93W kind of sits in the area and then slowly starts to pull off to the west. This is the one that the computer models favor for a higher likelihood of development in the coming days. As we consider, is this a threat for the Marianas? The model support suggests no, that we are looking at more of a westward motion going the next several days. This is both the physics based models and then also the artificial intelligence, the AI models that we are looking at and kind of incorporating into our decision making and our understanding of the potential threats. So this does favor more of a westward motion. Now, could it go near Yap or just north of Yap? It's still too early to tell, but this is something that we're watching closely as we have been. And yes, for the islands of Chuuk State, Eastern Yap State, this is going to be a rainmaker. For a lot of the Yap Islands where they have been seeing some drought conditions developing the past several weeks, the rain would be welcome. The wind, not so much. The gust potential, not so much.
Are any of the models showing, any of the physics or AI models showing any veering over Guam, Rota, Saipan, Tinian?
There are a couple, and so as I'm looking at probably 100, 150 different model runs among the different model systems, And then there are multi-member ensembles looking at each little variation of storm track potential. There's a couple, but these are significant outliers where the very large majority of these model tracks push westward into Western Micronesia versus the Marianas.
So for for our purposes today at 8:41 a.m. on Monday, May 4, 2026, something to keep track of with the National Weather Service, but not something to worry about right now, and probably not something to worry about according to the data.
For the Marianas, not so much. There's the usual caveats that always apply, and I think any longtime resident in the Marianas, you just have this instinct when there's something in Chuk, you watch it carefully, and so that will always apply. And so we're going to be watching this carefully for any changes in these potentials. But right now, the current models and actually for the past couple of days, the model data has been favoring more of a westward track, staying well south of Guam. But even then, a system passing to our south will have the tendency to boost our easterly winds and could definitely give us more showers in the coming days, just on that northern periphery. So that is something we can be looking out for. But for the tropical threat, largely expected to stay to our south.
Thank you so much, Brandon. And if it's okay with y'all, I'll give you an off-record ring tomorrow to see whether anything has changed. And if nothing has changed, then there's no need for an update for our audience.
Absolutely. And one other thing I just want to bring up. So we had Invest 91 last week. That one went through a spell, a couple of cycles of the computer models that really started to like 91W for development. We saw how that went. It fizzled out. It died. Now, it's possible that this 93W near Chuk could have been some of that remnant energy, that vorticity, that rotation of the atmosphere that has now kind of come into better organization. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center, on an annual basis, they open up about 100 invest, give or take. They open up about 100 invest areas in a year. The invest is just merely a numerical designation to better consolidate the tracking data, the modeling, the satellite imagery, that we can be keeping a better track on these areas for their potential to develop. But only about 30 to 40% of these invest areas go on to develop into tropical cyclones. Some web pages don't show the invest numbers until they have reached a certain status. And so right now, though they do have a numbered designation, 92 and 93W, we consider those as a sub-low area. And so some web pages, including Joint Typhoon Warning Center, will not have it labeled on their web